Every story starts somewhere, and in baseball, that somewhere is the minors. The breakout stars,
early on in day 3 of the draft, the Pirates called.
the wild moments, and the prospects you need to know about.
A sub-3 ERA in both single and double A.
This is Minor League Weekly, your inside look at the future of the game. Hello and welcome to Minor League Weekly, the first ever live version of the Minor League Minute brand. My name is Cory Sparks. I'm joined by Jacob Smedley. Over 1 million views across all platforms. That's what we were dealing with and very happily dealing with in terms of how engaged you guys have been as an audience on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, on X, to the point where we couldn't help it anymore. And now every single Monday at around 7:15 p.m. Central Time, we want to interact with you in a live capacity. So if you are listening to this live, you're on YouTube right now. You can go into the live chat with any questions you have, concerns, topic suggestions. We can always build onto the outline. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we got this up shortly after we debuted our first ever episode on Monday, December 8th. A long, long time coming, Jacob, but this is super exciting and excited to go on the ride with you.
Yeah, super exciting. And again, just like Cory was saying, a huge thank you to everyone for all of our videos. Again, I started in March. These guys, Cory, kind of led the charge well over a year ago with all the content and all the videos, long form, short form. Just thank you so much for all of the support and sharing. And yeah, can't wait to get this rolling. Another area for you to get all your minor league baseball fix. And hey, it's the winter meetings. It's the perfect time to tune into us talking about prospects or guys could be on the move and we start looking ahead to 2026.
So that's really important, right? A lot of people may be wondering, why are you starting this podcast out in the thick of December? AFL ball is done. There's not really anything going on. That's not true. Like the Rule 5 draft is coming up.
Yeah.
We're going to cover that likely next week and in some videos too. There is a lot going on in December. And yeah, it's one of the only couple months that we don't have baseball going on in a competitive sense where there's sanctioned games. But the Rule 5 draft is coming up. Teams are starting to really analyze and, take notes on what happened in 2025, and they're already building for 2026. Before you know it, in a handful of weeks, pitchers and catchers are going to be reporting. Spring training will be coming up and all that good stuff. So previewing today's Minor League Weekly episode, we start out with a segment called Headlines. We'll be talking about prospect value in 2025, risers and fallers. We're going to have to get creative with that here in the offseason. That'll be more nuts and bolts when we get into the actual season, spring training, minor league opening day across all 4 levels, what have you. Farm Features, that's a series that's going to span about 15 weeks. And the 2 teams that we're focusing on today are Jacob's Philadelphia Phillies and the New York Mets, which I have really no relation to, but I like their prospect pipeline. So we're going to start there in that division. We're going to play a little game. You won't see it every week, but I thought it was a fun way to kick it off. Mascot or Myth. I came up with a couple of alter egos, and I also referenced a couple of alter egos. Jacob here and you at home get to play the game of, is this a real thing or did he just make this up? And we'll dive into the history of the teams that actually do exist. And we're also starting a series, a lot of series starters today in the debut episode, of the teams that won their respective titles in AAA, AA, High A, Low A. We start with AAA, so if you are a Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp fan, it's your lucky day. We're going over that here. So again, you can find us on all those platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter and TikTok, Minor League Minutes as well. This is the weekly version of that brand. We kick it off, Jacob, with something that I'm really impressed with when you were doing the research for it. I've got a response to it that's kind of in reference to something that happened at the previous trade deadline. But what are prospects worth? It's the title of our YouTube video for the live stream today. I'm going to tee it off to you here, and you did a great job of just diving into what goes into a prospect's worth specifically in 2025.
Yeah, I think there's a handful of things that go into it, and you kind of look at the data, you look at the recent years, how it impacts it, and we've done a few videos on going back to the trade deadline with some of the top prospects. We'll get into the big trade in just a few seconds here. But I think Baseball America, an article by Baseball America back in May that was done, as well as a recent one by Yahoo.com looking at some of the recent general managers and how they're looking at prospects. To both of them equally do a great job of breaking it down. And I think it goes into a few things. I think first, players are coming up to the majors faster and faster. The recent numbers Baseball America found this is the beginning of 2025, so hasn't fully gotten the complete of this past season, but it was 4.2 years from a draftee all the way up to the bigs. Now, why is that significant? Well, really, in recent years, it's been 4.4. As early as 2021, it was 5 years from a draftee to get to the majors. So that was a high in recent years, looking at the kind of a graph, putting it on a graph there. And 4.2 was the lowest since 2012. So over a decade, it is the fastest that players are getting drafted and getting up to the majors. So much quicker the teams are having to evaluate their top prospects and make decisions on, is this a guy that I want to be the cornerstone of my franchise, or is this someone that I'm looking to move and get assets on at the major league level? So that's a first thing. A second thing, as well, as we kind of look at Grayson Rodriguez, the recent trade from the Orioles to the Angels, the top prospect in the Orioles system, one of the best pitching prospects a few years ago as well, had some injuries, quickly shipped out for Taylor Ward earlier this offseason. It's all about the future value and contract costs. So many players and coaches and scouting departments are so built up now that not many flaws slip through the cracks as maybe they did 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. Teams across the league are looking at all of these tools that are on, MLB.com and diving in further. What are guys saying? Do we want to bring this guy into our clubhouse, into our organization? So I think those two really big factors are accelerating, maybe the Padres and their mindset, but also some other teams that are just holding on to their maybe 2 or 3 top 50 prospects, until the wheels fall off or until they get to the majors and, you get to see them at the top professional game.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, right? And you can go a lot of different angles with this, Jacob, with teams doing service time manipulation. They want to make sure they hit on someone maybe 10, 15 years ago. And I think that's part of the reason the average is going down for amount of time in the minors is teams, because they have access to exit velocity and BABIP and arm side ride for pitchers and all these different, go on Baseball Savant, you'll just be absolutely wowed at what the general public has access to. Now think about these scouting departments. I think there's been a shift in mindset because these teams know their prospects more than ever from, we want to make sure he's ready before that clock starts ticking, because then arbitration can happen if you don't agree on something, got to go to court, that whole mess, and then all of a sudden maybe you lost him to somebody else who valued this prospect more, or now this big leaguer. Now I think because teams know their prospects so well, and because they have access, like you said, to all these different advanced analytics, they're willing to accelerate the clock a little bit. And some guys are home run hitters, like Paul Skeens. He was up through it in pretty much a year. Same with Dylan Cruz. James Wood rose up pretty quickly, referring to that draft class from a couple of years ago. Where I want to bring the real-world example in you referenced this. This brings me back to what the Padres did. They traded the farm, and I mean the farm, a large clump, double digits of their top 30 prospects for Mason Miller, Ryan O'Hearn, and others in an attempt to win now, and it ended up in being a Game 3 wild card exit against the Chicago Cubs. They made it very tough on themselves going forward to have homegrown talent going forward. Now the great thing about prospects and the value teams assign to them, you've already alluded to this, they have their firsthand research. There is not this locked away box of secrets about Luis Lara for the Brewers or Leo DeVries, right, to bring up the Padres now A's prospect situation. But now they have minor league coaches, they have strength and conditioning specialists, assume upper management on the big league ball club gets serious. They're looking at this person too. During all this time, the front office is keyed in. So I would like to believe when a team trades a top prospect, they're either well compensated or they just don't believe in the ceiling. Where the Padres confused me is they did not lock themselves onto somebody at the time of the trade through 2032 or anything like that. It was, well, Mason Miller throws the ball at 103 miles an hour. Ryan O'Hearn gives us some pop that we frankly just don't have outside of our couple of stars at the moment. Fast forward to the trade deadline, and specifically Leo DeVries, I cannot fathom why somebody who I don't think it's outlandish to say his ETA is 2026. He is going to debut this year, barring something catastrophic. I cannot fathom why the Padres, even with their top-end payroll, got rid of somebody like that. What was your response, kind of going interview mode here, you made a video on it on this channel. The Padres deciding prospects, at least in 2025, don't matter to us. If we can find guys to help win now, we're going to gamble over the next 2 to 3 year window.
Yeah, I think that's such a big part of it. And again, the Russell Dorsey for Yahoo.com to continue to plug his excellent article that he wrote just a few days ago on December 3rd in lead up, kind of looking and examining the general managers. He's like, the Padres zigged while everyone else zagged, and he talked with AJ Preller, and it's like his kind of mindset with that was, he understands how other teams are valuing his players, so he kind of maximized that. He took it, maybe disagree, agree if you do it in the short term, in the long term. Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think when you have a generational talent like DeVries kind of in your system, and you see that with a few other teams, especially in contention like the Tigers, some of these other front offices, of course, they operate very differently in terms of spending money, but very like these guys are going to be the future of our organization. But the Padres, I think in that kind of devil's advocate of Preller, you have all of these very good veterans on the books with Machado, with Tatis, with the pitching that they had. They saw an opening in the National League. They thought this could be the year to take down the Dodgers. They were a game away the year prior. So again, it's that short-term, long-term risk. And while everyone else is holding them back, Preller's out with the wind, and I'm going to try and improve my top ball club. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm shocked that he was traded, and I think the A's, especially with the young core they already have, are going to be loving when he comes up for them.
Yeah, and speaking of value for prospects in 2025, you can go through the gauntlet of the top 30. They did deal away a lot, but there's guys like right now I would distinguish names like Kevin McGonigal, right, and James Wood when he was coming up, and Leo DeVries, as those are blue chip stocks. Those are blue chip prospects. The likelihood at this point, based on where they've reached, Jesus Mate would be another one, right? The likelihood that they don't hit, based on where they are and how well they've been playing, you're almost guaranteeing that you ship away a prospect that is going to marinate into a decent Major League Baseball player. Where they go from there, that's neither here nor there. The last thing I do want to bring up with that is I'm like, oh, maybe there's a logjam, right? You got Tatis over there. You've got Machado talking about the left side of the infield. But, something I've learned as we've developed this channel more and more the last year and a half, and I've dove into this world, if you are a shortstop prospect, that's essentially like the people who get drafted to the NFL and they go to the combine and it's listed as athlete, like ATH. You can move those guys anywhere. So when I was trying to rationalize why does DeVries go? Why does DeVries go to the Athletics in this win now move when you could have tried to dip below him for the haul or just believed in him because he could be plopped anywhere? When you have a shortstop prospect, unless they've been in AAA for 5 years and you're thinking, all right, they're 29, it's time to come up, that's not really locked into stone. Shortstops have to range. They have to have speed. They have to have a good arm. They have to be able to contort their body. All that relates to your left fielder, your center fielder, your right fielder. The switch over to third is always probably the toughest with that because it's an extension of short. Second's usually a piece of cake. You don't have to have as much arm strength. You're still in that turn two scenario more often than anybody else. And then first, I would say that's a tough one too. You gotta be able to pick, and that's why you'll occasionally see the third baseman go over to the first. With reaction time, it might get a little tougher. But I see someone like Leo DeVries as a blue chip stock, as someone who played shortstop. And hindsight's 2020, Jacob. I think I'm sitting here saying this, and I'm glad you're pushing back because they were a first-round exit. But when you do something like that with all the analytics you have, it's not like Preller came out, and it's not like the Padres came out and said, we felt like we had this position covered or this skill set covered elsewhere, and best of luck to Leo. From all accounts, it was, these are the players that we want. We know they're major league ready. It's tough. It's tough, right? Because if you sell on a stock and it balloons up, you look like an idiot. If Leo DeVries ends up being a 5-year MLB veteran and we never see him again, this was a really good pick, or a really good decision by the Padres. So I think we got to see it play out. Great research on that, because I think it's a compelling argument that prospects have a lot of value in 2025, but we also have a greater idea of just how much they are worth because of the information that we have access to. We're going to move on to risers and fallers. This can be players, teams, organizations, coaches, mascots, fans that did something really well the last week, or Jacob and I get the luxury of going over the last whatever, since this is the first episode. And fallers, it's stock up, stock down. Fallers, things that just didn't go well for players, organizations, mascots, what have you. I'll kick us off. My riser, kind of building off of the idea of prospect valuation in 2025, is teams extending rookies. We talked about arbitration, when the first handful of years come up and a team and a player end up going to court because they don't agree on their own value on a year-by-year basis. Teams extending rookies when you have access to all of this information about your top-end prospect. I'm talking about Samuel Basallo, who just inked a big deal. I'm talking about Marcelo Meyer, who just inked a big deal. It is smart, because if these guys aren't a hit, you're buying in early enough that they don't have the 30-30 season behind them in the big leagues. So instead of being down $25-30 million a year, you're probably down $10 to $15 million a year, which still hurts. But it's not a ton of money in 2025 when the average payroll is well over $1 million. It's a dent, but it's not a deal breaker. If they are a hit, you got a bargain deal. And we have two very recent examples of this with larger sample size. The Braves, I would call them trailblazers. I know teams have done it before them, but the Ronald Acuna deal. How many times on national television or national radio when he was having an MVP-like season was his contract brought up? This guy was signed for a king's ransom. And then more recent, the Brewers did it with Jackson Chourio, and they signed him before he even stepped on a Major League Baseball diamond. A lot of people were critical of them. I was actually one of them before I saw this unfold in front of our very eyes. And I was big on Jackson in AAA, AA, all the way down to his high A days in high A Appleton with the Timber Rattlers. I was thinking, how do you know this guy is going to blossom until we're kind of tying it back to a topic we've talked about before, Jacob. We know more about these prospects than we ever have before. So risers, it's a mentality that I'm a really big fan of. It's one that's been surfacing up the last couple of years. If you extend your rookie and you really believe in him, put your money where your mouth is. Extend him. Then you don't let the MVP-like season, the Rookie of the Year-like season happen. Now their agent doesn't have as much leverage, financial-wise, to say, he's worth $40 million a year. No, he's not. He's a rookie. But I know one day he'll be worth $40 million a year, and I'm getting ahead of the curve on that. So long-winded I was there, but teams extending rookies, big fan of that.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off you, Cory. Yeah, huge fan of that. Again, you mentioned Marcelo Meyer, Samuel Basallo, another one in the AL East. Roman Anthony as well looks to be, again, another like bargain deal, getting him on that long-term deal. Yeah, it's great, and it's rewarding to top prospects. I think something else that we kind of had as well, didn't really discuss in that, is just the road through the big leagues, and then you spend so much with an organization, and then in Leo DeVries' case, you get shipped off in that big trade, and kind of having that foundation is so huge when you have coaches from all different levels help you get to the AA, the AAA, and for the Basallo, Mayer, and Anthony's case to the big leagues, and having that team trust it and believe in you, even though it's below market value. It's just such a huge confidence boost, I think, for these players, especially starting out. So yeah, huge, big on the risers as well. Right there with you, Cory. Great pick.
Awesome stuff. What is your riser for today?
Yeah, Rise are kind of keeping it there in that same vein, but keeping it right to the Arizona Fall League, which just ended, wrapped up a few weeks ago. And going back to a name we mentioned earlier, talking about top prospects, Kevin McGonigal, showing out for the Detroit Tigers, one of the number 2 in the prospect rankings here at the top with Connor Griffin, really showing out. And again, really questioning one of the huge debates. We might even get to it on one of these minor league weekly episodes. Is top prospects playing in these Arizona Fall League games, when you have a minor league season ahead of you and some, opportunities in the big leagues coming up, is it beneficial to play in these fall league games? Well, I think it was a huge benefit for McGonigal and the Tigers having him participate. Benefits of the fall league, getting extra at-bats, as many reps as possible, especially against other top arms, top players across different organizations, against teams that he doesn't really get to face a lot during the AAA season with the schedule that they put together, and experiment positions like you were mentioning earlier, Coy, to piggyback off your point about the shortstop and having him be able to play third, second with a handful of other great prospects from other teams that are involved and in play here. You get to put him at third, you get to put him at second, and stuff that he's going to have to play and get ready for a Tigers team that AJ Hinch loves to use positional versatility. He likes guys that can play short, can play third, can play second on any given day. So, and be teammates, just be in the locker room with these other guys from these other teams. It's going to do wonders, especially when he gets thrown into a big league locker room, when you have, a guy like Riley Green, a guy like Spencer Torkelson, these guys that kind of dictate the pace of the big league club. You kind of get that taste a little early in the Arizona Fall League. So, riser, the Fall League as a whole, but also Kevin McGonigal getting the experience.
You brought up the Pirates prospects. Like Tony Blanco Jr. hit some balls that I still don't think have landed.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like the Pirates, they
yeah.
say what you will about what they do from March to September. Their prospects, they're usually really, really talented. It's just about that developing, and then ultimately, let's call a spade here. They don't have a whole lot of payroll relative to the rest of the MLB. But when you see guys like that going up against talent that they're just not seeing because you're starting to mesh the different levels together, that's really fun. McGonigal almost looks ready. I think the Tigers are, if you just pull the Dodgers from the pool, the Tigers are one of the most ready-made organizations top to bottom out there. The Casey Mize #1 overall pick was heavily criticized. He came back from TJ. He's been a hit. Don't even have to bring up Tarek Skubal. And then you look at the different weapons, like a Torkelson, who was also a #1 overall pick. You put your traditional get on base, hit around 300, maybe compete for the batting title guy like McGonigal in there. That is a great pick. I've worked summer wood bat before, where you're kind of seeing the experimental grounds of, let's put our third baseman in left field and just see what happens. That is so fun to watch as a baseball fan. And those guys, it's a value for them, right? Usually the shortstop, who could be flowered into a different position, they're not going to do that in the AAA championship game. They're probably more likely to experiment in the AFL, where it's a bit of a more low leverage environment. Fallers. I'm not really in a position to criticize anyone playing on the baseball field right now because no one's been on it, at least in a competitive atmosphere and what we're talking about the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to go with, and this is kind of poking fun at them, I still think they're a great organization, and it's going to get a lot of press. We're talking about it already. The Somerset Patriots. They have a 19-letter nickname. I don't know how they're going to fit this on merchandise. I guess you kind of see this with different players that have really long names. But the Somerset Patriots have a name that spans 19 letters. I think it's the sesquicentennial. I'm going to look this up. But it's essentially celebrating one of their anniversaries. And I have no clue, print-wise, how they're going to make that work. You make it small? Do you do the circle thing where you start to arch the letters? I don't know. I think semantics-wise, I'm a big semantics guy. That's a nightmare, personally.
Gonna look like Nate Shearholtz or Jeff Shamarja there, going rounded around the jersey on the front like a big circle.
Yeah.
That's what I'm imagining. That's what I went to.
It's I found it.
I guess another follow from.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say it's the semi-quincentennials. So that's a lot of syllables. Yeah, I don't even know where to go.
Yeah, a lot of. That's gonna be quite an adventure for the jersey designer there. I'm just, again, my follower as well, kind of right in line. The Louisville humidity. Now, I understand, again, like Cory mentioned, no slight on the Louisville Bats, the AAA team for the Cincinnati Reds. Got a lot of young prospects for them. Sal Stewart, who had some big league experience, so he might be back and forth there as well. But the humidity, just kind of looking at, I guess, the jerseys specifically. I understand the history of the Louisville Heat and of course, the historical significance to baseball of Louisville with the bats and the connection with baseball as a start. But the jerseys with the sweat stains already on there, like I don't know. I'm not a fan. I'm a fan. The natural sweat stains out on the field, but ones that already kind of have one in the pits. I don't know. I don't know how I feel. That's just me. Maybe again, it might be something where watching the team play with them on, you get to see how the players are moving, how they look on the streams on TV. It might look better, but just on kind of the first look, the imaging, not a huge fan.
This is it's reminding me, great point, that when Fanatics launched their jersey and right, very similar vein where people were talking
Yeah.
about the thin quality and they're like, oh, dude, sweating, I can see through them. I'm
Yeah.
curious to see how long it lasts, right? They try it out.
Yeah.
Does this come back? I think with the experimental playground that minor league baseball can be, if it goes really, really, really bad, it might get them a lot of press, and maybe that leads to a spike in merch sales like the baseball card you get that had a mistake on it. People are going to be like,
Yeah.
oh, this is so awful, I need to get it. So for their sake, if it's bad, I hope it's the worst thing ever because sales might actually go up. What you don't want is where people go, that's not quite what I thought that was going to be. That's not going to work out too well. That's kind of a nightmare. I want nothing to do with it. If the players and the coaches end up having fun with it, you get a viral clip out of a broadcaster, maybe it turns into something. But I'm not a big fan of the sweat stain non-repellent fabric either. I'm with you there.
Yeah.
So good pick. That's what risers and fallers is going to be. Just the best and worst of what we've been seeing lately. And Jacob, I like that you and I both went with wardrobe there. All right, this next one, we're going farm features. This is the start of a long series. We're doing 2 per video where we dive into a farm system. We're going to give you our top 5. We're going to give you strengths, weaknesses, diamonds in the rough, future outlook. How does it impact the big league ball club as a whole? And with our farm features, Jacob is a Phillies fan. He is going to be our subject matter expert here. We're going to dive into the first of 30 teams, the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, super excited for this, breaking them down, starting in the NL East. Of course, a very tough, a very great division in terms of prospects. We mentioned James Wood earlier on in the episode with the Nationals, graduating CJ Abrams as well. So, can't wait to dive in. And yeah, we'll get right started with the Phillies. We're going to be doing the Phillies and the Mets, 2 close, historic rivals. So breaking them down for 2 teams that, again, should be competing at the top of the National League once again this year as well. So get started with the top 5 prospects right now for the Philadelphia Phillies. You see right there, Andrew Painter, the right-handed pitcher. Talked about Grayson Rodriguez earlier. It was Painter and Rodriguez for multiple years as the pitchers kind of next up. He's right now number 16 in the MLB total rankings as well. He has an ETA of 2026. See what the Phillies do with their great pitching staff, with Luzardo, with Christopher Sanchez, who was runner-up in Cy Young. If there's room for Andrew Painter in 2026, I think he gets some opportunities maybe middle of the season, see how everything shakes out. And number 2, right there, you see him, Aiden Miller, shortstop, third baseman, infielder, MLB's number 32 prospect. Got a little taste of AAA ball at the end of the season, hit .333 in 8 games in the final month of the season with AAA, worked all the way up from single A to double A to triple A this past season in the Phillies organization. Number 3 was a hot topic around the trade deadline, and Justin Crawford, center fielder, left fielder, MLB's number 54 prospect. The Phillies, there was a lot of talk about bringing him up this past year in in center, in left field with struggles at the big league level. He provides speed, great contact. Also did a video on him for the trade deadline going over what he brings to the table. The power is a bit lacking. He did struggle in the minors with strikeouts. He's a guy that, grounds on the infield. Defense has to play up. He has incredible speed on the base pass, but still looking to launch the ball more. A lot of beating the ball into the ground. So hoping to correct that moving forward. Number 4 is a recent first-round draft pick, Gage Wood. Some of you might remember him throwing a no-hitter in the College World Series for the University of Arkansas. He's number 4. He could be a quick riser with a 3-pitch mix. He just started rookie ball this past year. There were some murmurings if he's one of those guys that gets shot up really quickly because he has a reliever-like mix with a changeup, a curveball, and a mid to high 90s fastball. And number 5, Arun Escobar, has really taken people by storm. Maybe a little right-handed shades of Jose Ramirez. I know a lofty comp, but hits the ball hard everywhere. A lot of home runs, got called up, struggled at the end of the season for Double-A Reading, but a big performance there for Arun Escobar. Both him and Wood unranked in the top 100 for MLB.
Awesome stuff. So I'm going to dive into each of those with you here. Pick your brain on a couple of them. We got a comment in our live chat from Froggy Fresh 88 saying Painter's mustache is one of one, which I have to agree. Pretty good stash he's got going on there. Andrew Painter. Very simple here. Health is wealth. He needs more innings. I was a big fan of how the Phillies organization in general handled last year. He hadn't played competitive baseball in a professional sense in about 2 seasons. So big gap. I'm kind of shocked to see they got to triple digits. 118 innings after missing 2 straight years of pro ball. It's about establishing a fluid, snappy motion that doesn't stress the elbow as much. We brought up the Tigers before. Again, I'm a big fan of their system, so I'll use them as a comp here again. Casey Mize, former number 1 overall pick, another top-end pitching prospect as soon as he got drafted. I think he's a perfect example. Had a lot of elbow issues, fixed his mechanics, leveraged the lower body a lot more, and Mize's side-by-side is one of the best models I think players like Andrew Painter and their training and coaching staff can take. It looks way more effortless. It's way less violent in terms of the torque of the elbow, yet the radar gun reads the exact same. That's what you want, and ultimately that's what you want before someone has surgery. With Painter coming out, I want to see more than 118 this year. Ultimately, if you believe someone this high up is going to be a bona fide starter, which is what would garner a rating like that, you're going to want to see 130, 140 innings. These guys are playing at about 130 ball games, or they're playing a season of about 130 ball games as opposed to 162. If you can get in that sweet spot where all of a sudden you're big league ready and you can log 150 innings, that's my fine line for you're ready. You're not just patchwork in terms of filling out the back end of a rotation, and you need the Andrew Painters of the world. I know you got Wheeler in the rotation right now to fill out and be a 150-inning guy. So I think it's all going to come down to his mechanics, man. We've got him coming off a 120-inning season roughly. If post-surgery he has a more efficient motion, and we're going to see that, not just through tape, but whether or not he pitches more innings and we see elbow soreness on his injury report, that's going to be really big. Aiden Miller has an attribute I love in prospects, especially when they're a little more raw. He's walking a lot. He hit 264 across 2 levels last year, but the OBP is around 400. I like the patience. I like the plate discipline because let's be honest, right? We see it all the time. Someone's tearing the cover off the ball in AAA. They go to the majors. Matt Mervis comes to mind for me. I know he's doing well with the Marlins now, or he did this last year, but you call them quadruple A guys where they just can't get up there. I think the defining factor that buys a prospect a little more time when they're not able to time up the ball, they're walking. They're able to identify the slider low and away on 1-2 and work a bit of a longer count. Justin Crawford's a lot of fun, and this is where I want to toss it back to you, Jacob. In terms of speed, how excited does this make you as a Phillies fan, knowing not only do you have someone with the raw speed that Crawford has, but the rules of the game the last couple of years are advantageous. You have disengagement limits. You have a pitch clock to where there's going to be certain instances, especially when Justin Crawford eventually makes his debut, where he's stealing and the opposing defense can do absolutely nothing about it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great to see, and I think that for Phillies fans, it's a reminder of Shane Victorino and Jimmy Rollins. I think is what the kind of speed that he's going to
Ooh.
bring. Of course, Trey Turner was signed to kind of be that, and he has been in spurts, but he has had some lower body injuries, and the team has been a bit cautious with him on the base pass. So you saw it a little bit this past year in his highest kind of most productive season with the Phillies. But yeah, really looking forward to it. He can be a game changer that way, and also using his speed on defense. A lot of rave reviews with the ground that he covers. He's been in between center and left field, so it'll be interesting to see where he sticks in the big league played, left field all the way kind of up through the lower levels, up to double A, even up to triple A to start. But then they started putting him in the center field and getting him reps out there as kind of the main patroller. So, yeah, again, like I said, it's going to be the bat with him. It's going to be, can he consistently get on base, like you just said, at the big league level, singles, doubles, hitting the ball in the air more, because, he can hit it the ground, but MLB defenses might not allow him to get from home to first on a weak chopper to shortstop.
And you're seeing that with guys like Chandler Simpson, right? Where it's the hit tool. It's not the power. It's in minor league baseball. They're sending soft dribblers to second base, and it's not even close. They run it out. That's the difference between AAA and ultimately Major League Baseball. I love that you brought up his prowess in the outfield. They've been trying him out at center field. Because another way to buy yourself time when you get that first call up, and let's say you're hitting 180 through 7 games, is having a really good glove. And if he can cover a lot of room and use that speed and have it be advantageous for him in defense, there are guys out there whose bread and butter are their gold glove. And if they had the offensive output and they were an average defender, they probably don't have a job right now. So the fact that Justin Crawford is multifaceted like that is great. Gage Wood, man, recognize that last name. And then you talk about the fact that not only does he have ties to Kerry Wood, but he just cut his teeth in pro baseball last year. And I don't want to overreact to a small sample size, but dating back to the 19 strikeout no-hitter in the postseason in collegiate baseball, I'm going to say he picked up right where he left off. 5 of his 6 recorded outs are via the K. The strikeout stuff is there. There are not many guys you see, even top-end ones, and he's very green, that have a 70-grade fastball. You saw it. This guy is electric. And when I think of the impact on a big league ball club, which is what we're tying some of this to, and I'll do the same with the Mets in a moment, this guy's electric. Like the off the stat sheet stuff. Do you see how animated he was after every single one of those strikeouts in college ball? Look,
Oh yeah.
we love baseball, right? But it's a 162-game season in the dog days of August when you're in a wild card fight. Or for the Phillies, hopefully they're atop the NL East trying to stave teams off, and you've played 12 games in 12 days. Sometimes guys get a little mundane. Their head dips a little lower after a strikeout or a rough inning. Gage Wood is one of those guys I want on my team in the dog days of summer. So I love the body language is what I'm getting at. I think that's really going to galvanize the whole group. Escobar played across 3 different levels last year, started in low A, made his way all the way up to double A. Got some pop, got some speed, the maturity at the plate that I brought up in a prior instance with Aiden Miller, I believe kind of applies to Escobar here too. Stocky for a 5'10 guy, but pretty athletic for somebody with that frame too. Got to be feeling pretty good if you're a Phillies fan and you're looking to the next generation, on top of the fact that your big league ball club is playing competitive as well.
Yeah. Yeah, again, going back to Gage Wood, just to add on about that, the post-game interview, he had the 19 strikeouts. It's, oh yeah, but I hit a guy.
Yeah.
That mentality where it's like he has this incredible performance, but it's nitpicking that one play. I mean, yeah, that mentality is just huge. And yeah, Escobar, it's the hard hit rate that I love with him so much. Where he puts the bat on the ball, that ball is going hard somewhere. Whether it's a homer, whether it's a line drive to left field. Again, I think the strikeouts need some work. The plate discipline, still kind of filling out that frame in the minor leagues at that second base. Maybe he's a third base. He's kind of like, you look at this list, you look at what the Phillies are looking for. He might be a player that in interests other teams be like, yeah, I'll buy in that exit velocity if there's a trade on the table. I see some people in the comments already putting, of course, Ketel Marte is a big name, and
Yep.
some other, with the winter meetings, and Phillies are a team that are rumored with a bunch of these guys. So some of these players here in this top five, I don't know about, again, Miller, Painter, and Crawford. Those are kind of the three at the top, and the Phillies have been really reluctant to move off of any of those guys. But Escobar, Wood, mention another name here in just a second. But these guys are going to be teams are going to be looking for if the Phillies are looking to buy.
It helps to
But
have that depth, right? Like you've got your top end
yeah.
names, but we talked about what the Padres did, which I don't think a lot of teams are doing right now. If you want to save your blue chips, but you're 4 and you're 5 and you're 6 and you're underrated guys, which we're going to go to next here with you in a moment. If those guys have quality, if they have the sexy stats like the exit velocity, like the hard hit rate, like the quick 0 to 90 speed, that's going to be advantageous for you too. All right, I love this part of our segment because these are the household names. But here's someone you're buying in on right now. You're attaching to them and saying, I think this guy could be a little bit better than a lot of people are giving him credit for.
Yeah, I think to add into it, yeah, underrated player to watch in the Phillies organization. We're talking about the 4-5. I'm going right down to the 6 player in the Phillies organization, Dante Nori, the Phillies outfielder. He was the 2024 first round pick, the 27th pick in the first round just a few years ago, out of Toronto, Canada, was committed to play at Mississippi State, but chose to go with the Phillies and start in the minor league system. And in 12 Arizona Fall League games, we were just talking about the Fall League with Kevin McGonigal. He had an injury at the beginning of the Fall League, so it was even a question if he was going to play at all for kind of the Phillies and the representation. A 308 average, 822 OPS. He stole a handful of bags and hit an inside the park home run in one of those games as well. Another guy just like Crawford who impacts the game as an outfielder in so many different ways with his speed, with his bat to ball skills. And oh yeah, you see right there at the bottom, idol growing up Joey Votto, and even got a congratulatory text from the fellow Canadian following being drafted back in 2024. So has some great roots to fantastic Canadian baseball. So excellent bat to ball skills, been cutting out the strikeouts. Another guy that has really improved on his plate discipline from his first year. And just again, to further on the stats in the Fall League, had a home run, that inside the park home run, 7 RBIs, 5 walks to 7 Ks, 308, 386, 436 slash line in 39 at bats and 12 hits. And so, yeah, I think he's a guy that, again, going back to that system, he's someone that could leap up, especially with a Phillies team that is looking for outfield help, from younger outfield help. Are they going to trade for someone? I think he's someone that, looking at his ETA right now is listed at 2028. He's a guy that, if the Phillies give a 2-year, 3-year contract to, he's someone that's right there in 2027, 2028, could jump up even higher if he continues his play.
Talk about having a good role model. Joey Votto, in terms of his approach, his OBP, his walk rate, and he did something wire to wire for his career until he was a minor league baseball player in the Blues system, or the Blue Jays system, that I think every player should still take after, even though exit velo and OPS all reign supreme now. When there were 2 strikes, he choked up on the bat. He all of a sudden went into, I need to put this ball in play and play the situational game mode. And if Dante Nori is taking after somebody with that type of mature approach, that's a Hall of Famer, right? That is one of the best to do it at his craft in terms of being a stingy, stubborn, irritating at bat for opposing pitchers. Awesome stuff. We'll go into strength of the system next. What, when you look top to bottom with the Phillies farm profile right now, are you really confident is going to turn out well for them?
Yeah, I think the strength of the system right now, I think you have to look at the starting pitching. I think we mentioned Andrew Painter again, kind of leading the way, could be debuting this season as well. But talking about Gage Wood. Again, we mentioned him earlier. He could fly up the system for the Phillies. Again, the fastball profile, that is going to look great moving forward. Again, has to, use it at the higher levels, seeing how teams adjust, mixing that in. I think that's something going back to Painter with his mix. His fastball, the struggles this past season coming back from Tommy John. I think he was making the adjustment his first time in AAA. Guys were hitting that fastball. He's got to find a way to make it a little bit more deceptive. He has an excellent curveball, but guys were really teeing off on that fastball. So it's all about adding more movement there, looking to see that's a kind of a tweak, an adjustment this upcoming season. And then Gene Cabrera in there right in the middle as well. Another name to watch, over 100+ innings in back-to-back seasons. And this past year, coming off of a season where only a 214 batting average against in Double-A, the strikeouts went up, the ERA went down again, sub-4 at 3.81. He's been a consistent arm, someone that has an ETA right now of next season if potential injuries, come into play. Again, not hoping for that at all, but he's a guy that could jump up to AAA next season and be in the mix for the Phillies as that young crop of pitching that they have. Another name to watch, another few guys to keep an eye on is Matthew Fisher, who they drafted in the 7th round under slot. He's a guy that has nasty stuff, that had top few round protection. And Moises Chase, who's coming back from Tommy John, was in the trade for Gregory Soto with the Orioles a few seasons ago. He's dealt with some injuries, but has shown flashes in spring training and his time in Double-A of some nasty stuff. So that's my strength. And again, those guys, some teams could covet them and look at them, for teams that need starting pitching in their system.
Well, that's a big thing, Jacob. Before we go to weaknesses, is you guys have a surplus of riches there, right? You already have a starting rotation with numerous all-stars. Then you have your top-end blue chip, as long as he comes back as healthy and ramps up his innings and has that more fluid, snappy motion we were talking about, and Andrew Painter. So now you have a couple of alternatives, right? What you just alluded to. Hey, we dip into the trade market. We have so many starting pitching talents. We don't know what to do with them, so we're going to get value back for them, and we have the depth to back it up. The other option is, hey, you need a mid-reliever. Hey, you need a closer. That's where these guys that maybe you alluded to it with a couple of names really believe in the fastball. It's electric stuff. But maybe the secondary pitch isn't there, the tertiary pitch isn't there, or the fastball itself doesn't have enough movement to really fool guys the second or third time through the order. There's your closer. There's your setup man, where in 10 to 25 pitch splotches, it's hell to go up against them. But all of a sudden, the second, the third time through the order, you pick up on it. Hey, I know it's 101, but it's flat. That's where it's a win-win. The Phillies, the ball is in their court. They can decide, hey, we want to get some value for this guy, and it's on our terms because he's our prospect and we know all about him. Or it's, look, I think you're going to be a great starter one day, but for 2026 or 2027 or 2028, whenever the ETA for these guys is, I think you're going to be our 7th inning guy. I think you're going to be our setup guy in the 8th. I think you could be our closer to look really far in the future. So awesome stuff. There's always points of improvement no matter how good your farm is. Where do the Phillies need or have a little work to do?
Yeah, I think right now, just kind of looking at the weaknesses, one that I highlighted right off the bat is corner infield. They have, as you see right there, Carson DiMartini, the number 13 prospect in the system, third base, has played kind of second base as well. And Keaton Anthony, who has played first base, DH, he's climbed up the system. He finished the year in AAA Lehigh Valley. These two guys, they're in that 13 to 15 range. They have value. They're still developing. DiMartini had a great this season. 2024, 2025 is a good contact guy, but there's not a ton of depth when you look at that top end talent. And for a team, of course, that has Bryce Harper, who's heading towards the back half of his career, Alec Boehm, there's a lot of questions surrounding his future with the team and what he brings to the table. That's an area for this team. We're talking about Aiden Miller earlier. He's a guy that, you look at him, he's a shortstop all the way through and through, but I'm wondering if they might give him some more reps at third base this season upcoming in AAA to start to maybe get him ready on that corner because they don't have a ton of players in that opportunity. So Miller could get that opportunity at third base. Another area kind of under the radar is catcher, and the trade deadline really showed that with Eduardo Tayit, one of the best catching prospects in baseball, and was ranked top 100 out the door for Johan Duran at the trade deadline. So, I mean, that's an area where, again, you look at the Phillies, look at, with JT Realmuto, a free agent, they have guys kind of lower on the prospect pool. That's an area that, they could look to target in the draft upcoming. So yeah, corner, infield, and catcher. That's I think where the team could look to develop more and maybe get some guys in the international pool, Rule 5 as well, to kind of add to that.
Great foresight on the catching position, because a lot of people look at the Phillies and they go, they got a top 5 guy. What's the issue? This is where you dive in and start looking at Spotrac and looking at contracts and saying, yeah, we're good now. Are we good in 2028? Are we good in a couple of years? And what's our contingency plan if we don't dip into free agency and spend the big bucks, or go into the trade market and ultimately offload some assets that we have right now? Corner infield's tough, man, because you got to be able to pick a ball. You got to be able to have astute reaction time. And typically the expectation with your big burly first baseman or your rocket arm at third is they got to have some pop too. So you need to have a really good arm. You need to have reaction time. You can't be very error-oriented. And usually the expectation, if you want to hang around in this league and be a starting quarter infielder, you got to have 20, 25 home runs. You got to be able to rip a ball down the line. And that is where, if you're starting to rely on prospects for that, you hope it's well-rounded guys. You hope one attribute shines through. We go to the Cubs and look at someone like a Matt Shaw, who looked great in AAA. The glove translated, and that kept him his starting spot throughout the majority of last season into the playoffs, even though he was hitting around the Mendoza line. So a lot of expectations come with those corner infielders and catchers. Remarkable work. There is your first ever farm feature on Minor League Weekly, the Phillies, and we flip the page right over to the rivals with the New York Mets. And that is where I'll start us off with the top 5. These are guys that have made various appearances on this channel. If you've been following us on YouTube, we've made different videos, short form videos on some of these guys. And for top 5, it's Nolan McLean, Carson Bench, Jet Williams, Jonah Tong, and Brandon Sproat, who Jacob has made a video about before when we were nearing the deadline, kind of speculating what pieces could maybe be on the move or good prospects for that type of scenario. I'll start us off with McLean. One of the more interesting stories in all of minor league baseball. Two-way player at Oklahoma State who kept that versatility heading into pro ball. Everybody looks at Shohei Ohtani. He is a unicorn, and asks, are we ever going to see somebody like a Babe Ruth or like a Shohei again? Nolan McLean was on a track to do that in the lower levels of minor league baseball, but then he struggled with whiff rate. The strikeout rate was above 30%. That's usually a death toll for someone's offensive output. Picked up pitching, and when I say picked up, I mean just more focused on it, and was dominant. Gets the call up to the big league club last year. 5-1 over 8 starts with a 2.06 earned run average through 48 innings, 57 Ks in that span. Walk rate wasn't bad. He went from being a knockoff Shohei Ohtani to, is this pitching thing going to work? He's putting all the chips in the middle on this attribute, to, if Drake Baldwin and Cade Horton and Isaac Collins don't exist and Nolan McLean's sample size is a little larger, it's not outlandish to say he was in the Rookie of the Year conversation for the National League. That is how dynamic he was as a pitcher, not just as a rookie pitcher, as a pitcher in the latter stages of this season for a Mets team that was fighting for a playoff spot, ultimately came up short against the Reds. Carson Bench, outfielder, 2026 ETA, another Oklahoma State guy, another Cowboy. He topped out with an OPS near 1,000 in AA last year before seeing it fall with a batting average below the Mendoza line, over 90 ABs in AAA. Outside of AAA to the majors, this is where you really start to see it's either the high A to AA or AA to AAA fall off, right? Not fall off, but learning curve, where these guys all of a sudden, it doesn't look like a beach ball anymore. The ball's whizzing a little faster. It's guys who have big league aspirations and their actions are backing it up. I think Carson could be the future of New York's outfield. He has a very strong arm. It's tied for his best attribute along with the hit tool. Starts with an open stance, and he struggled in AAA. He was pulling or he was struggling to pull and lift the ball with the open stance. It's truly all about timing, and that is something he's kind of trying to hone in on. Then Jet Williams, great name. Shortstop, outfielder, second baseman. We've talked about it before. If you're a shortstop and you're not too developed in your pro baseball career, you could play almost any position outside of pitcher and catcher. And Williams plays shortstop at the moment. They'll throw him in the outfield once in a while. He'll scoot over to second. 5'7", so that might be showing what his future could be like in terms of maybe a second baseman or a shortstop. If he really has the speed, they try him in the outfield, but you don't want the ball to get past your guy. That's resulted, though, because he is so short, in a plethora of walks. It's a small zone. We're also seeing a strikeout rate that's been well above average, flirting with 30% at times. So not making a ton of contact, but think your little league leadoff hitter who, not to say he crouches down a ton, but it's tough for pitchers to locate. I also think it's really funny. I'm calling him short. I'm literally 5'8", but from a baseball perspective, he is a speed demon, so he fits that profile, makes up for the height with that. First name Jet is very, very fitting with that. 45 stolen bags in 121 games in 2023. Bit of a down year with lack of availability in 24. He nabbed 34 stolen bases in 25. Jonah Tong, Jacob, you've talked about him on this channel before. Great prospect. He was in a trade deadline video that Jacob made on this channel when we were forecasting certain teams who may be getting active during that time, trying to catapult up their respective wild card rankings. You look at his 5 starts, and inconsistency, I think, is the most fitting word. One of two things happened. He would go relatively deep into a ball game, 5, 6 innings, and strike guys out at a pretty high clip, or he'd get hit around so much that he was an early exit. 2 starts with at least 5 innings and 1 or less earned run given up. 2 starts of 2 innings or less with at least 5 earned runs given up. The guy was either shelled or he put up a quality start. Fastball velocity is in the low to mid 90s, so you know where this is going. He's got to rely on his pitch mix, and he's got a cut slider, Vulcan grip changeup, which is really fun. That has a chance to be the real bread and butter in terms of deception. Is it going to be fastball? Is it going to have arm side ride with the changeup / sinker look with the Vulcan grip? He's able to miss bats. That's been his MO forever, but now I think for him it's about nibbling away at the zone. And Brandon Sproat, right-handed pitcher, ETA 2025, because he did have a little bit of time in the big leagues. Statistically and stylistically, very different from Jonah Tong. Doesn't rely on deception and doesn't really have a whole lot of, I need to work on finesse here. He's just power. It's all gas, no brakes, 95 to 98. The problem, not a ton of movement. So you brought this up with prospects before, Jacob. When you have a fastball that goes 98, that's all fine and dandy. If it's flat, guys are going to be able to locate it after a while and time it up. So the changeup is also Sproat's best weapon. A lot of pitching talent here. We'll get to strengths and weaknesses in a moment. I know I just went long-winded again, but some fun names, right? McLean, you've got Williams, who's kind of a Swiss Army knife for them. Pretty well-rounded top 5 for the Mets.
Yeah, and I think, again, talking about and keeping it with the pitching, I know Benja and Williams going to be, could be impactful as soon as next season, especially with the direction that this Mets team goes. And you look at David Stern, the president of baseball operations, with what he was able to do with the Milwaukee Brewers, where he had these young guys readily available. This past season for the Mets, they had these young pitchers readily available that they were able to call up, especially when the free agent signings really didn't go their way. I think something else to note, just saw today a report that the Mets are kind of hesitant on giving starting pitchers really longer term contracts, and these pitching prospects are a large reason why, with Sproat, McLean, and with Jonah Tong, with the trust, with the development that these guys have, the connection. You see the videos that they have after games where it's the 3 of them kind of coming up together, almost like, call up brothers, if you will, at the end of the season. I mean, that connection means something. And when you have these guys, the struggles that Tong had at the end of the year in the big leagues, I think that there is the potential. Again, I mentioned the Tim Lincecum comp. I think that's there. I think that's something he's got to work around, though. He doesn't necessarily have have the velocity just yet that Lincecum had. So it's really about the mechanics. It's all about the movement and the manipulation of the zone. Yeah, and Sproat, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Cory. With him is the movement. Is he has the velocity, he has the multiple pitches. It's all about movement, and he's a guy that, just like Painter, started out real hot, rose very quickly in the minor league system, and once you start to face off against those guys that are back and forth between AAA and the bigs, that are fighting for their professional lives in AAA there, and trying to get on that roster, that 40-man, you gotta mix it up a little bit more. So yeah, I'm very intrigued, and as you mentioned before, as a fan of the Philly, I mean, this Mets system, it's also deep with players down the list, and they've got different positional value, not just pitchers, but Williams, Benj. I mean, he's a guy that he called up next season and could be batting 6, 5, 7, 8 in that lineup behind Soto and Lindor, and making a difference.
That's another thing with the Mets, right? They've got their superstars in Lindor and Soto. Depth, the bottom end of the lineup, they're still looking to find a consistent way to round that out with competent bats. That could be a Jet Williams. That could be a Benj, depending on how they end up panning out. I really like that you kind of doubled down with me and backed it up with Sproat's got the stuff, but if it's a flat fastball, that is not going to fly in AA. It's not going to fly in AAA. It sure as heck is not going to fly in the bigs. That's a pitching machine at that point, right? You talk about the different dimensions of how to make life tough for a hitter. There's velocity, but these guys are professionals too. They get paid too. That's one of my favorite quotes in sports, when you have someone who just bests somebody else, whether it's a heavy favorite or an upset. All these guys are professionals. They get paid too. So then you got to get some arm side ride on it. You got to change the grip. That's where those unsung heroes, the pitching coaches, they come in handy, where you make subtle little grip changes that it's not changing a guy's routine entirely, but it adds some extra spin rate, and all of a sudden the ball looks like a wiffle ball when it was just straight tunneling before there. So diamond in the rough. I dug deep in this one. We'll see if he turns into anything, but I think relative to the fact that he was a 13th round pick in 2024, we've got a leg to stand on here in terms of him outperforming expectations. That is R.J. Gordon, right-handed pitcher, ETA this upcoming year, 2026. I just said 13th round pick in the 2024 MLB draft. Here is what a 13th round pick has done in pro baseball so far across numerous levels. 11-3. 3.26 earned run average, 147 Ks over 126 innings, and he's made it to his high as Double-A Birmingham with the Rumble Ponies. Awesome mascot. Low 80s kick change that has been giving players fits thus far. The fastball, it's not consistently rising above 95. It sits in that 92 to 94 range. So as is the case with most pitchers who don't have that flashy primary pitch, he's going to have to nibble. You can't leave that middle. It's going to look like a meatball to some of these professional baseball players. But he's got a slider and a curveball that have tight movement. With some of these guys, when they're developing their secondary, their tertiary pitch outside the changeup, your slider and your curveball, you don't want those to hang, and you don't want them to be loopy. Because if you have a loopy curveball, you're going to be able to pick up on it as a hitter a lot quicker. The tight spin, the tight movement, that all of a sudden makes the hitter's ultimatum wait just a tick longer, and that could be the difference between a strikeout looking and a rope double down the line. So RJ Gordon having that attribute where everything's tight, everything looks very similar tunneling-wise, that's really exciting for me, for a guy who, again, was a 13th round pick in the 2024 MLB draft. It's a fun one to follow, Jacob. I might be reaching a little bit, but, if you have someone who has an ERA sitting in the low threes, the walk rate isn't egregious, the command is good. Again, his bread and butter is going to be nibbling, but could be a fun story to follow.
Yeah, and again, 147 strikeouts doesn't happen by accident.
No.
I think that's something that, especially can play in this Mets system, and they've done such a great job, especially at the big league level, with being able to maximize guys' secondary pitches and also arm slots. Again, I think Sean Manaea is just such a wonderful example for them, where they got him from the Padres. He had this kind of high arm slot. Teams were picking up on it. Then got to that low 3/4 length, kind of motion. So I mean, that's maybe something that you look at with Gordon, with these breaking pitches, with that fastball that isn't that high velocity, but maybe just a different even arm angle could get guys, where that kick change is still effective. The breaking pitches are coming at from a different arm slot. Same with the fastball, and that 93 looks like 98. That 93 looks like 97. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out. And again, Double A, really, really rising and proving it in the middle to higher levels.
Excited to see what RJ Gordon does when he takes that next and final step in minor league baseball. How does he do against the AAA hitters? But you bring up a great point. You can't have almost 150 strikeouts over that span of time by accident. The stuff is effective. The deception has been the key for someone who's not exactly described as a flamethrower. And it's never too late to add a couple of MPHs. It's just a matter of doing it the right way. Strengths. I'm going to go more macro here and say the Mets have a lot of top-end talent. Out of the top 30 prospects in baseball, the Mets have 3 of them. We named them before. Nolan McLean about to reach graduation status. Benj and Jet Williams. Top 30. Do the math. They're supposed to have 1, right? So you have a lot of guys, whether it is just about big league ready, going to call them up, which we've seen in little spurts already with a couple of those names, or you've got really good trade pieces. The Mets are in a weird spot right now where they went cash cow mode when it came to somebody like a Juan Soto. They got him from the Bronx. They have Lindor, but they also, for the majority of this year, led Major League Baseball in payroll. So if they want to go out and make more splashes in free agency, they're allowed to. They're going to be able to. We'll see what happens after 2026 with the idea of a salary floor, a hard salary cap that has a bit more of a penalty because teams like the Dodgers and like the Mets are repeat offenders. That is probably a different video. But for strengths, they have the top-end talent. They have a couple of blue-chip guys that I think if they wanted to swing a deal and didn't want to have to play the payroll game in free agency, they could do that. Or maybe they turn it into a sign-and trade because they're able to. Weaknesses, I'm going to say high-end hit tools in general. We named a lot of pitchers, right? We named guys that are going to be able to fill out that rotation or be a strong mid-reliever option. The Mets batting title guy, if you will, was Pete Alonso, too. I know it's really tough when guys are throwing 100-plus with movement to hit around 300, and I know home runs, OPS, and stolen bases, they reign supreme right now, but 3 of the top 5 prospects in the Mets system are on the hill. They need more offensive answers, and we alluded to this with hopefully Jet Williams working out for him. Jacob, I don't know who's going to hit 6th for this team next year, or 7th, or 8th, or 9th, and give them consistent output. So if I had to go weaknesses, I would say consistent, not even consistent, but a plethora of guys who can contribute on offense that are going to be major league ready the next year or two.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. Yeah, the top end talent is just scary, especially when you're looking at trade deadlines and winter meetings going on right now with the Mets. When you have kind of a plethora of starting pitching, very similar. We just talked about the Phillies, 2 teams in similar positions, looking maybe for have similar strengths in that regard with that pitching at their disposal to move. But the Mets even a little bit more, as you mentioned, with the guys ranked at MLB.com. And yeah, the weaknesses that I don't know, is Benj that guy? Can he figure it out on a call up, with that hit tool? I think he has it there. Saw some pop as well. You mentioned Jet Williams, who's that kind of, again, going back to a present Met. Jeff McNeil, that guy can kind of do it all. That has that kind of great bat to ball skill and view of the zone, but is he a guy that can hit 300 in the majors? Is he a guy that can get on base and reset the lineup for them? So I think it's something to look at, and it might just be something where it's a free agent signing where you kind of have to recycle bringing guys in every year. It's going to be tough to sustain that when you don't have maybe a guy that can make his way through in the minors, but yeah, great job starting in the NL East. 2 teams that have some great prospects to talk about.
And we will continue to dig into the NL East next week, and then we'll make our way around the National League, the American League, and we timed it out so that right around when spring training is getting going and we're seeing competitive baseball games again, we will just about be done. Appreciate the compliment. That was a lot of fun, right? In terms of just diving in and seeing, hopefully that helped you guys out as well. Top-end prospects, weaknesses, strengths, diamond in the rough, who you could be buying stock of very, very soon. We're going to take a quick break, quick message for all of you about our podcast and where you can consume Minor League Weekly and Minor League Minute in general, and we will resume after this short break.
Missed the live version of our Minor League Weekly podcast? No worries. We've got you covered at Minor League Minute on YouTube and Minor League Weekly on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Then you can go back to watch or listen to the whole episode for all of your prospect and affiliate ball needs. So what are you waiting for? Go follow, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications to get caught up with the latest in minor league baseball.
Teams get extremely creative, as I just turned our mics back on. Now we're good. Teams get really creative with their alter egos, right? I have found a couple that are insane, and I also may have made up a couple. And Jacob, you get to play with the people at home in terms of whether this is real or if I just made this idea up out of thin air. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. The first one, I'm not going to give a city or anything. I will give that if it ends up being correct. The Mullets. Is it mascots or myth?
Mullets. I mean, we're talking about mustaches earlier for Andrew Painter. The mullet, a little hairstyle. Oh, man, again, these names are crazy. You know what? I'm gonna start us off and say, actually, no. I'm going to say no. For the first one. No for the mullets.
Okay. This is actually a mascot, which shocked me.
Whoa!
Yeah. So I would have had the same answer as you. We'll give a little more context on it. But the mascot was for the Pensacola Blue Wahoos. They changed their logo and their name to the Pensacola Mullets in the 2021 season. The logo itself was a fish with a big red mullet on top, draped over the top of the fish. They operated with their key phrase for the day, and you were able to get it in their merch store. Mullet ball. So, like, Billy Ray Cyrus tribute, I guess. But they also had a mullet contest with their fans. So something I found on their social media pages and on their website in the archives is they had various fans, most of them children, like 5 or 6 year olds, that had mullets. And then they picked the winner, gave them a prize. Cool promo. But the Mullets is actually a real name. And if the tables were turned and you flipped that on me, I would have said the exact same thing as you. I thought that was made up. I had to dive in to make sure I wasn't getting like Wikipedia'd, and it was real. So yeah, the Mullets are a real thing. Back in 2021, Pensacola turned themselves into the Mullets.
Wow. Crazy. All right. Get
All
the
right.
mustaches.
There
Get
we
the
go.
mustaches going.
Yeah. All right. We will get, maybe that's the next one, right? We'll get to this next one here. We have the yogurt raisins. Mascot or myth for the yogurt raisins? Good snack.
Oh,
Going
man.
food here.
Yeah, good snack. Yeah, some good snack. Yeah, got some Modesto nuts, another team. We got some food teams. Is the yogurt raisin something that man, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just gonna stick with no because I want to hear if it's a yes. I'm gonna say no for the yogurt raisins.
Way to redeem yourself. That is completely made up. I think that'd be a cool mascot name, to be fair. You could get like the
That would
little
be
eyes
cool.
on it, and then maybe you cut it down the middle so you have the raisin on the inside. I could scheme something up like that. We could start a yogurt raisin campaign, but no, that is entirely made up. I did like how you ran through and you're like, oh, the Modesto nuts are a thing. You'll have other teams do like the baby cakes. But yeah, that was made up. So well done.
Okay. All right. 1 for 2. 500. Batting 500 through the first two. All right.
This is the rubber match, if you will. So you are 1-1.
Okay.
The last one is sticking on food and drink. The coffee. Is coffee a mascot or a myth?
All right. All right. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you could do with that. Bringing the energy, the wake up call. I'm just going through some promotional ideas that you could do with the coffee. Ah, man, I gone no with the other two. I'm going to go yes. There's some team out there, I think, that the coffee for a night or two, they went with it. So I'm saying yes.
All right, we'll go.
So universal, right?
We'll go
Is it
drum
so
roll.
universal?
It is. Yes, it is correct. That is a name that was used. So good stuff. 2 for 3. That's very good considering we debuted this and I just threw random things at you. The coffee was actually the Norfolk Tides, so AAA affiliate of the Baltimore Orioles.
Ooh, okay.
They've had top-end names like Jackson Holliday, Heston Kjerstad, Cedric Mullins at one point, right? Switched it up and turned it into the Norfolk Coffee back in 2019. Norfolk has been referred to as the East Coast capital of coffee, so this was a love letter to that. In reference to its many coffee roasters and prominent brands in and around the area, the region's warehouses possess over 50 million pounds of coffee. At least they did in 2019. That is enough to brew 2 billion cups of coffee at any given moment. Pretty crazy.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, 2 for 3. We're batting 666 here. We're all-star.
I was gonna say,
here for the first game. Yeah, this was great. Yeah.
Good stuff.
A Hall of Fame track right here for games.
You are in Kansas.
Yeah, that was. There we go. There we go. Yeah, but yeah, no, I was just gonna say we've got a final segment here wrapping up as well. Again, we'll be featuring some other games, some other stuff as well, not just mascots. Throughout the off season, into the season as well, with the games back and going. And again, looking kind of a preview to next season, wrapping up this past season of minor league baseball is looking at. We're going to go through each system and look at the title teams, what they're doing great as an organization, maybe prospects that are involved. What kind of stands out about it. And the team that we are spotlighting this week, Cory, is the AAA affiliate of the Miami Marlins, the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, who won the entire AAA championship, taking down the Las Vegas Aviators, the A's AAA team, in the championship game after winning the International League. So just kind of taking a look a bit. I know Cory has some information as well on on how they performed. They were the best team in AAA in terms of ERA. They were excellent on the pitching staff. A 3.71 team ERA. The next closest was the Durham Bulls and Nashville as well. The two other teams that had a sub-4 ERA as a team. They have 3 players in the top 100, including the number 22 prospect in the game in Thomas White, a dynamic left-handed pitcher who finished the year with a 2.31 ERA and held opponents to a 1.11 batting average in the AAA level, one of the top-rated left-handed pitchers in the entire minor league. So when you have that guy really leading the charge, that's going to bode well, and especially when they were in the bottom third in a lot of offensive statistics, like average, OPS, hits as well. So really struggled in that department, but shut down everyone else. So a lot of 1-0, 2-0 victories, top 5 in strikeouts, tied for top in the AAA in saves. Interesting note as well, which I found this very interesting looking into their stats and performance. They led the AAA in intentional walks. So maybe a strategy for teams. They had 21 intentional walks. There was another, I believe it was Durham, who had 16 as well. They were the only two teams that had over 10. So, hey, just put on the best hitter and we'll strike out everyone else or shut down everyone else. So maybe the strategy, the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp revolutionizing it at the AAA level.
That's very interesting because I feel like whenever that happens in the big leagues, people are like, oh, you just gave up a free 90 feet. There's a couple guys like a Juan Soto, Shohei Ohtani, where you go, okay, that's it. Leading AAA in intentional walks, not having a great offense at times, and then shutting people down. A lot of 3-2, 2-1, 1-0 ball game scenarios, right? That's very good news because the Big League Ball Club, they showed some promise. They hung around 500, did a lot better than I think people expected. Kyle Stowers on the offensive end had a really, really nice year. Broke out, finished out at 79 and 83. The team earned run average, and this is why I think it's good news that AAA is doing very well on the mound in Jacksonville with the Jumbo Shrimp. Shout out Scott Kornberg. Earned run average is 4.6. That's 25th in Major League Baseball. So not only is there some top prospect talent on the mound for Miami, but they're in the top level. Like these are not, our third best prospect happens to be a pitcher, just got out of rookie ball. Maybe we'll see him in a couple of years. These are guys that could very well be debuting by opening day or in the first couple of months by June 1st. So that's a really exciting thought. You kind of dive in further and look at what the Marlins bring to the table from a pitching perspective. Sandy Alcantara was Alcantara was the only Marlins pitcher to log 150 innings or more last season. The back end of the rotation was patchwork at times. So when you have a team that's looking for pitching depth, they've got a bat in Kyle Stowers and a couple of other guys who are starting to find their own. You could trade for it. You could spend in free agency, or in this case, you can look over in Jacksonville, Florida, not far from your home base in Miami, where nobody had better pitching at that respective level than your affiliate. And they were putting guys on base in the form of an intentional walk, which you just told me, which is nuts, at a higher rate than anybody. I mean, think about that. The amount of times a runner might be in scoring position, and then you fill someone out on first, and you're saying, all right, runners on first and second. I think it's more likely we get a ground ball or a strikeout than someone roping it down the line, and now a one-run double turns into a two-run double. For context, about 60 guys in Major League Baseball had 150 innings pitched last year, so you're expecting to have two. The Marlins had one. That's one of many different examples where you look up and down and you go, who is going to be going wire to wire for us? Who do I know will be available during opening week, but will still have the stamina in their left or right arm come August, come September? And this is a Marlins team that was in the playoff picture the last couple of weeks, right? To say that they are far away, it's not really a true statement anymore. Now, their division is very competitive, but I think anytime you have a team that's flirting with 80 wins and you can see the prospect pipeline in AAA marinating to the point where they're beating everybody else at their level, I mean, think about that, right? Guys who get drafted don't see the big leagues at a very high rate, but as you elevate, you get to high A, double A, triple A, more and more of those guys have or will see big league ball, and these guys are beating their peers at a better clip than anybody else in the pitcher versus hitter dynamic. So this gets me really excited for the Marlins in 2026, and especially in 2026 in terms of finding ways to supplement Sandy, who has also been brought up in trade discussions, but the Marlins were a little better than a lot of us, I think, thought. If you can get a solid 2, a solid 3, a solid 4, and just have the same 4, 5, or 6 guys out there at any given moment that you know what we can ride with these dudes for a few weeks. That starts here. I think that starts in Jacksonville, and really good nugget on the intentional walks, because the fact that they were willingly putting more guys on base and still finding ways to get outs in spite of an offense that couldn't always generate runs, that's really, really impressive. And boy, if there's a team out there that needs pitching depth, it's the Miami Marlins right now.
Yeah, especially you mentioned Sandy, but Edward Cabrera is another name that teams are floating around, kicking the tires on. So, I mean, when you have the willingness for them to be, we're willing to, hear offers for this guy at the big league level. When we have this kind of depth, when we have a handful of these starters really performing at a high level in AAA, and they're in that developmental stage where you want to get guys reps at the big league level. or have find a pitcher like a Kyle Stowers version where they kind of break onto the scene. You have that cornerstone starter or reliever. So yeah, it's great news, and really capping off an NL East episode with the Phillies, the Mets, and then the Marlins AAA system doing wonders and winning the whole thing in the AAA system.
Yeah, how about that, right? And that's pretty much going to wrap up our episode here. But yeah, a lot of NL East, and that's not going to stop next week because we're continuing our farm features. We'll probably take it division by division. So maybe the Marlins will be in there. We'll see if they're the odd team left out as we go 2 or 3 at a time, or if there is an odd team left out. But that is going to be the episode for today. Gave you your headlines, had risers and fallers, farm features with the Phillies and the Mets of the great area of New York. We had Mascot or Myth. Jacob went 2-1, pretty dang good for making the debut. And our title team series began with AAA. We will make our way down the ladder. We go AA, then high A, then single A. Maybe we'll have a special episode down the road just talking about more standouts from the AFL, since that is our most recent reference to what's been going on the diamond. But Jacob, great stuff. Awesome first episode. Looking forward to doing this in the future.
Yeah, and thank you so much again for the comments as well. We really appreciate that, everyone watching. Let us know what you guys want us to talk about, especially with the winter meetings ongoing, especially with the Rule 5 draft, which we will get to as well. Let us know what topics you want us to cover in minor league baseball and the majors, and how these impact one another. So, yeah, thanks for watching and tuning in.
Yeah, a handful of people in our live chat. We appreciate that. If you want to interact with us again, we are Minor League Minute on YouTube. This is Minor League Weekly. You can go on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, leave 5 stars. Please, if you enjoyed what you listened to today, Instagram, Minor League Minute, TikTok, Minor League Minute, X, we are Minor League Minute as well. Anytime you want to leave feedback, suggestions on what we cover in the future, like Jacob just said, we are all ears. This is your show. We are just the ones running it. That's going to do it for the first ever episode of Minor League Weekly here on the Minor League Minute YouTube channel. Every story starts somewhere, and in baseball, that somewhere is the minors. The breakout stars.
Early on in day 3 of the draft, the Pirates called.
The wild moments and the prospects you need to know about.
A sub-3 ERA in both single and double A.
This is Minor League Weekly, your inside look at the future of the game.